Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Make Happiness episode. It's been a long ass time, but I'm your host, Ian Price.
I'm Eli, your co-host and producer.
And I'm the third guy hanging out in the room, Alex Price, Ian's older brother.
Yeah, so we're doing another little brother episode, but I'm super excited because this is a special one. We're just going to be solely talking about ultra endurance biking and ultra endurance racing. We just kind of started getting into it this year, and it's going to be really fun conversation. I can't wait to talk about it. So I think we should jump right in. First thing I wanted to ask and talk about is kind of like, what does ultra endurance mean to you?
Well, I think technically it's defined like an ultra marathon, right, is anything longer than a marathon. An ultra endurance bike event, a century is a 100-mile ride. And so I think the vast majority agree that like the ultra endurance bike race is anything over 100 miles.
So it's like a class of race?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Just kind of defines the distance you're going, and usually there's no rest stops or amenities provided. Typically they're like kind of unsupported.
You got to do it yourself?
Yep. Which is another level of difficulty compared to other races where you've got a rest stop every 10 miles and you
Right.
get water, food, and that kind of thing.
I was curious too, like when I don't know the kind of the root of starting of this, because a lot of these races, like you're saying, there's no amenities, there's nothing. Why did we get into this? Why are we trying to do all these different races this year?
Sure. I think the root of it was a race that we're trying to get into this winter, a winter endurance race, and you have to basically prove that you have the capabilities of what this race requires just to be able to get accepted as a racer into the application process. And that kind of pushed us to look at what kind of endurance races we can do this summer and fall leading up to it to kind of build up a racer resume, if you will, to meet all those prerequisites. And that's kind of, we missed the cutoff for one race, and then there was the Alexander 380 was the first one we did, and that one was free. So free is always good.
Yeah.
So that was a big push to get us to do that one.
Well, it wasn't free. We had to send in a postcard, so it was like
right.
50 cents.
Yeah.
Dude, it's expensive.
Yeah.
Got to pay for postage. But that was a cool one.
Well, when we were signing up for that, so this is that Alexander race was kind of the very first ultra endurance like race we've ever done, and that was the first thing of getting into it, right?
Yeah, and I think at that point the longest distance we had ever ridden in one go was 120 miles or something.
Yeah.
So this was a big leap because this was 380 miles, and it wasn't on pavement. Everything was on gravel roads in southern Minnesota, kind of by the Mississippi River Valley. And if you've ever been down there, you're familiar with the area. There are a lot of hills, and that was another thing that was pretty intimidating for us going into it. So yeah, sending in that postcard was a pretty big commitment for the two of us.
Yeah,
I was going to say, so what's the timeline of like your whole racing career that you've been doing this? Because you've been doing it for a little while now. So like give the listeners a little bit of a timeline of sort of which was your first sort of official race doing these ultra endurance type races, and
Right.
as to where you are right now.
Well, so that's the other thing too. We grew up mountain bike racing and doing bike racing, so that whole realm of things has been pretty, apparent to us. We've been involved in it, that kind of thing.
But they've only been like 20-mile races or less.
Exactly. Yeah, nothing of this caliber. So this is like a new door we've kind of opened this year.
So we did that one was in May, the Alexander, and then we did one was the next one in August.
After that, yeah, we did the Wausau at the end of July, the Wausau 24-hour race, which was mountain biking.
Yep.
And then the following weekend, we did the day across Minnesota. So we've really done 3 races so far that are pretty
Extensive.
Insane.
Yes.
Yeah. We also did another one that was the Duluth Challenge that we did ourselves, where we biked to
yeah.
Duluth and back in under
Yeah, that's so
24 hours.
insane. The first time I don't know, I can't remember if we talked about it on any of the previous ones, because when did you do that?
No, well, we attempted it once.
We attempted it before that first 380 mile, the Alexander 380.
Yeah.
We did it before that. We attempted it because we had no idea what we were doing for this
Yeah.
long race. And we were like, well, we got to get comfortable with biking while we're sleep deprived. We got to be comfortable sitting on the bike for over 10 hours, all this other stuff. So we're like, where could we bike to just get that amount of time and that amount of miles in the saddle? And so we're like, well, let's bike to Duluth. Like, we know that's about 170, and well, let's see if we can go there and back and just do it straight through and see how far we can get. And we left at 11 p.m. on a Friday, and we had way too much gear with us. Our bikes were really heavy. We were unfamiliar with this whole environment of biking, and we got up there. We made the mistake of biking across the city over to Fitger's to get like burgers and fries and some food there, and that added a ton of time. And then we had to bike back, and it's a 14-mile
Uphill.
out of Duluth. Other than that, it's flat. It's flat the whole way, but that's the one hill. And
Well, we are also holding a pace of like 20 miles an hour the whole way to Duluth on our way up there because we didn't know about like pacing ourselves.
Yep.
We didn't know that you should go slow and conserve your energy.
Yeah, it's just so easy to just keep. It's like if you're in like a nice sports car or like a faster car than you're used to, and you're going down the highway, and like you look down, and you're like, oh, all of a sudden I'm going like 100 miles an hour just because the car does it so effortlessly. And when we're on this flat paved road the whole way there, we're like,
You just cruising.
oh, we're going 20 miles an hour. Like, let's just keep it going. Then later we felt the repercussions.
Yeah.
Yeah. We reached like mile 240 or something when we stopped and kind of called it quits.
Yeah, I was not doing good on nutrition, and I was trying to eat a lot of solid food and that kind of thing, and my body couldn't digest it quick enough or metabolize it to give me energy, and I was just totally exhausted. And I was doing the math, and if we had kept riding, we had a little over 100 miles left to go at that point, and it would have put us back home at about 4 a.m, and I was already getting tired and sleepy, and I didn't want to fall asleep on the bike because I knew as soon as the sun went down, like that's what makes your eyes kind of get droopy.
So what kind of things did you take away from that? Like, you're talking about food, like solid foods. Do you take a certain type of food with you, like on these endurance races?
So food is a big one. Eating solid food is good, and eating real foods is really important. Obviously, you want stuff that's like salty and electrolytes. That's what everybody talks about with races because you're losing salt in your sweat. There's a mix that our dad told us about. It's called Spiz, S-P-I-Z. But
You're gonna give away our secret?
The people got to know.
It's a secret formula.
It is. Honestly, this thing is amazing. But I guess it was developed by a surgeon that for people in like the ICU or whatever that couldn't eat food, and they needed to get all their nutrients. So it's got everything across the board that your body needs for like a full meal, calories, and like all of the other things that your body needs to be able to break down those nutrients. And so it's just a powder mix, like a whey protein or whatever, but it's not whey protein. It's this whole other thing. And there's a chocolate one and a vanilla one, and that's it. But it never took off in the medical industry. But there's these racers that do the race across America. They literally go across the whole U.S., and this is what they use. They don't sleep.
Just
they don't
chug
eat.
In the
they
shakes.
you drink it in a water bottle. And it's liquid, so your body doesn't have to break it down to give you energy. It kind of gets turned into, you're just absorbing all these calories. Yeah, because on some of these races, we're burning like 15,000, 20,000 calories, and like that's a lot of food to take in while you're on a bicycle.
Yeah.
And we kind of talk about it's like a chocolate milkshake. It honestly tastes pretty good. Like it's not that bad. I know some of the electrolyte powders and some other stuff are really sugary and just kind of like leave a film inside your water bottle.
Statistically, things that are good for you don't typically taste good.
Yeah.
Or like that chalky consistency.
Yeah.
Like this one, honestly, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But I love it, and I just like am obsessed with it now because it's the secret weapon, dude. It gets you through it.
How do you get it? Do you have to like?
We buy it online. They just ship it.
The full name is called Spizorectum, but we just call it Spiz.
Yeah, because that sounds gross.
That's hip.
So I want to touch back on that first ultra race because like going with the Alexander 380, after we did the Duluth ride, we kind of like destroyed ourselves on that. And then we were just like reassess. We're like, all right, so this is what we didn't do right. We tried to live off of like granola bars and goos.
Yeah.
That was not a good idea.
And gels and like the gummy, Cliff Bar gummy things.
Yeah. After that, we did a couple more centuries, didn't we? Like we did one to Red Wing and...
Yep, we went down and pre-rode some of the course on the gravel because that was another thing. We had never ridden gravel. This was a whole new race setting for us because all we've done are mountain bike trails and pavement, really. So we went down there and pre-rode some of the course, got familiar with some of the hills. A lot of the course goes on what's called minimum maintenance roads.
MMRs.
Yeah, they call them MMRs. But for us, that was the coolest part because coming from a mountain bike background, they're just like these ATV trails with rots and...
No, they're tractor trails. There's not ATVs on them.
Some of the farmers, they got like their gators or side-by-sides, those things.
Yeah.
But there's just these huge ruts and rocks and logs, and like you're just bushwhacking through the woods. And so everybody else is braking and slowing down, and Ian and I were just flying down these hills. But then you go up some of them, and those ones really sucked.
Yeah. The I wanted to mention too for this first ultra race we did it supported, so our dad was there with us because we had no idea what we were doing, and it was our first like huge race. So he bought he rented out a U-Haul, the smallest U-Haul you can rent. It's like a 5x5 or something.
Yeah.
But the plan was to sleep inside of the U-Haul, and like we had a bunch of extra food that he had prepared, so he'd meet us at like certain spots along the
It
race.
was like every 40 to 60 miles or so, or something like that.
Yeah, and he would have like a plate of food ready. He would have a igloo, one of those giant, what are those water?
Like a water cooler, like with the spigot on the bottom, so you can just fill up.
Yeah, and then so we could just refill waters, eat some food, like warm, like good food, and then we could just get on the bike and go, which is super awesome.
Yeah, I think that was our biggest advantage, was having that available and ready.
But so that was really cool. And when we first started getting in, the first 200 miles of that race, honestly, were pretty good. Like we were doing a lot better than we thought we were, and I was surprised with how comfortable my body felt.
Well, and it was nice too because we had left the start line with 15 other people or whatever. There were not a ton of people at this race.
Yeah.
And we left at midnight, and everybody the gun goes off, whatever they say go, and you just picture everybody sprinting to go down this road, and everybody takes off at a leisurely 10 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And is just casually riding down the road because you have 400 miles in front of you. And so being with other riders and not on our own where we're pushing ourselves and like, oh yeah, we feel 20 feels good, let's just hold this.
Right.
It was nice to be with them and just like, nope, reel it in, go a little bit slower, and then slowly like crept up to like 15 miles an hour. And so I think that was a big thing that helped us to feel really good.
And then that was really fun having that group of all of us going, and then is like when we started going up to 15 miles an hour, then there's like a little like 5-man pack that broke off with we were in the 5-man pack, and then we start getting a little bit further ahead, and then it was just us, like 4 guys. I don't remember who it was, but
Yep.
So that was pretty crazy. We started to realize like, oh, like we're in the front.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a good thing or what.
And so, yeah, just to be clear, our mindset going into this was just to finish the thing. We were like, whatever happens, like, let's just, like, we want to do it. We got to finish it. And it's not a timed event. There's no time cut off.
Yeah.
It's just go out there and just ride this course. And that's all it is. It's just about having fun and riding your bike.
Yeah, our goal was just to finish it so we could say in the application for Arrowhead is that like, hey, we did this 380-mile race. Like, we're totally capable of 130 miles in the winter. But so after we started breaking away with those other guys, I was just like, holy shit, like we're in the front. I think we should dial it back a little bit. And you're just like, no, let's just sit in the draft. Like we're feeling good. Like Dad's got food for us ready. And I was just like, all right, like we're doing this.
And so that was the other thing that was super helpful is we knew the course. We had kind of looked at the map and we knew where the big elevations were and where we go through towns. And so the first rest stop was in Red Wing, or rest stop. The first town you go through is Red Wing. Any quick trip is a rest stop because that's where you got your amenities. You
Any
can
gas station.
Refill a water bottle, yeah. So we knew the first one was in Red Wing, and then like 15 miles past that, you hit Lake City, which is the next one. And so we were like, another 15 miles, like we can get there without stopping to fill up water. So we blew past the first gas station. I think a lot of other people stopped.
Yeah.
And having that knowledge ahead of time, just like, oh yeah, we're good here. We'll just hit the next one and spread out that gap a little bit further. And at that point, we were the ones in front. Like everybody else was behind us.
Yeah, because everyone stopped at that first spot.
Uh-huh.
And then when we got to the second the gas station in Lake City, we stopped because that was what we were thinking, to refill on waters and food. And
I really had to take a shit.
Yeah. So Alex is sitting inside, like alleviating his bowels, and I was watching the bikes. I see the 2 guys that we were riding with pass us. He looks over. He looks over at me while I'm sitting there, and then I just kind of had that like racing and competitive instinct from the mountain bike background. I'm just like, oh shit, okay, now we got to go. So I ran inside quick to yell at Alex and be just like, we got to go.
And he's running out with his pants around his ankles.
Yeah. Toilet paper trail behind him. Well, and you were saying they were about to stop. They were slowing down to come in and like stop there too. And then they saw us sitting there and then just kept going.
Yeah.
Oh, it's that kind of mentality where it's like,
this is our opportunity
you make
to
eye
get
contact
ahead.
and then you're like, all right, we're going.
Yeah, exactly. And then that was kind of like what started the fire, because our instincts of like racing mountain bikes were just like, all right, well now we got to catch them and like see if we can keep up.
Yeah, but our novice minds didn't realize you've got 300 miles left. Like it's a marathon, not a sprint.
They got to stop sometime too.
Yeah.
So that was a fun race. We learned a lot, and yeah.
I wanted to ask actually something before we move on.
Yeah.
As far as like the course, how do you study a 400-mile course?
So it depends race to race. So that race, a lot of us use Garmin GPSs on the bikes, so that way
Okay.
you can track your speed and elevation, all that stuff, whatever. But there's also a map function on there because it's a GPS, and so some races they'll actually give you the course map ahead of time, and so
Okay.
it's like a digital file that you can upload to your GPS. So we're literally just following a map on our little bike computer, which is super convenient and handy to have, and that way we can look at the map on the computer ahead of time, and it shows you all the elevation changes and what cities you're going through and that kind of thing. And then also what pavement you hit and what's going to be like a gravel road cutting through some farmer's backyard kind of thing.
Well, there was the race that we just finished, the day across Minnesota, the dam. That one there was no GPS route at all. We had to use cue sheets, which is kind of the traditional way of doing it, ultra races.
And something we'd never done.
Yeah, that was a whole new thing for us. But you basically get like, I don't know, like 8x8 like sheet of paper that basically says like, turn at this road, go left at the fork, or like stay right on this.
Old-fashioned directions.
Yeah.
But it's got the mileage too. So you know at like mile 15, you've got this fork in the road. Mile 16, you got right on
The T.
Oak Road or whatever, that kind of thing.
It's
That
like
was
before
kinda-
smartphones, you'd have to download the MapQuest things and print those out and figure out how to get there.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that was kind of cool because at the start you get like the first set, and then you have to get to the first checkpoint, and that's when you get the next set of cue sheets. So you only can see as far as the next checkpoint.
Okay.
So like you get to this checkpoint, then you get a new set to go to the next one, and then the next one, and then the finish.
Gotcha.
But that was I honestly really liked it because it kind of took away from always looking at your GPS. It was kind of more like, okay, I got to remember to turn here. It was keeping your brain more engaged, I
Yeah,
think.
something to focus on, like
Yeah.
a distraction in a sense, but like in the best way.
Yeah. Because when you're riding with 100, 200 plus mile race, it's like your mind can't think about anything other than my legs hurt.
You
my
can't look
lungs
too
hurt.
far ahead type things.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll get distracted by what's 200 miles up rather than like what's 10 miles up.
Exactly.
I wanted to talk to you and go into the little section talking about like the mentality during these long rides. So like, what does it look like trying to overcome all those battles of your physical and your mental and all that kind of stuff?
Well, so the first experience with that is probably that Duluth challenge that we tried. It just broke me. Like the first time where you're just like, oh, I feel really shitty right now. And then it's like, yeah, we could get a ride back. Yeah, it's going to get dark and cold. And this was like spring too. I think that was March or April, and there was snow on some of the trail.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. We didn't bring winter gear. So like it was pretty cold on the
Were you
ride
feeling
up there.
it then?
Yeah.
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 We
It was-
didn't plan at all. We had no idea what we were doing. We still don't know what
It
we're
was-
doing.
Well, on the ride up, it was in the morning and it was like 35 degrees or something.
Wow.
And then like it was nighttime and the sun started cresting up over the horizon. It's like, okay, it's finally going to get warmer. And then like we stopped to eat some like breakfast snacks or whatever on the trail as the sun's coming up. And then it dropped down to 30.
Yep.
It's just like, there's no winning. But yeah, so back to your question, like overcoming those spots where you're just really beat down. I think after doing the Alexander race and knowing that our dad had food or whatever at the next stop, and it wasn't thinking about like we've got to do another 300 miles. It's like, okay, we got to do the next 50 miles, or like we got to do the next 70 to get to where he's at, and that kind of thing, and it just breaks it up. And so that gave us something to focus on that made it a little bit easier. But then when you're going through those times where you're like, my legs hurt, I can't do this, you just kind of push through it or think about something else. Like we had music, that was a big thing. We put together a playlist with like 2 days worth of music on it, and I just downloaded it to my phone because I knew I wouldn't have service. And then we just played that on the Bluetooth speaker, just to give you something to distract from all the physical pain that your body is going through. And we've learned from this that you kind of go through those points where you're really down, and then like half hour goes by or hour goes by, whatever, and then you're like feeling really good again.
Yeah.
And so it kind of comes in waves. It's just this like sinusoidal wave that goes up and down and up and down. And if you can know that there's going to be another high point and there's going to be another trough, but you know that there's going to be another high where you just like got to
Feel
get back
good.
to that point and
Yeah.
just ride that wave as long as possible.
That's like a metaphor for life in general, I think.
It is. And it's
Yeah.
a very literal experience
Yeah.
on some of these rides.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the like on this last the day across Minnesota race we did in August, like the wave for me is always, for some reason, it's like right in the middle of the race. So right when you're like just over halfway, I'm always just like swearing. I'm in such like agony and I just want to quit. And I absolutely hate everything about
It's pretty funny, some of the words that come out of his mouth.
I just like, everything. And I will complain about everything. I'm just constantly yelling.
And you're just like, I'm never doing this again. We're not doing this next year. And then we finish the race and you're like, that's awesome. We got to come back. I'm like, dude.
It's those highs and lows, man.
I know. It's just so funny.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I go through. It's always in the middle of the race. It happened with the other, like some of the other ultra races we've done, and then after that, I start coming back up. And towards the end of the race, when it's the last 50 miles, maybe it's like because I can know that the end is near. I know the finish is really close, so I'm just like eager to get done. I have more energy.
Boost.
Yeah,
that was our thing with the Alexander 382. That first one we did, the gravel race. We got halfway through it and it sucked and we hated it and we wanted to be done and we were just like, the motivation at that point was like, let's just get to the finish. Like we just want to be off the bikes. Like that's all that the motivation was, and that was enough to just keep the fire fueled for getting us back home. But yeah, man, those last like 40 miles were like the longest.
well, you were saying on the day across Minnesota, you were really hurting those last 40 miles. You were completely beat.
Yep, it was hot, ran out of water, started cramping. It was tough. That one. Well, we pushed really hard the first half too, which we shouldn't have done, but we were really
Eager.
We had high expectations for this race, and we
Yeah.
were pushing it a little too hard, I think. And just like our ride to Duluth, it came back to bite me in the ass. But I expected it. I knew that we had pushed ourselves too hard, and I knew that that was a possibility of coming up later in the race. So I was trying to plan for that and give myself a little bit of a buffer to recover before I hit that wall. Mm-hmm. But that wall still comes.
Yeah, right. For these mental sort of and physical blocks that you guys go through, up and down, what do you guys talk with like each other? I'm sure you talk to each other, but do you guys like talk to other racers? What kind of things do you like think about or do while you're on a bike for 10 hours, 12 hours?
If we're with other racers, yeah. Some of these longer ones, it gets real spread out. It just depends how many people are doing it. The day across Minnesota when we were riding with this other guy that was also doing it unsupported, because we opted to do that one without a support crew. And he was riding with us for quite a while, and we were chatting with him a little bit, but we'd ask like, hey man, like how you holding up, how you doing, because like we were visibly in pain or like audibly
Yeah.
not feeling good at points, and just like how are you doing, and it's just like, I'm okay. Like, dude, give me something, like just show some emotion.
It's a power move. He didn't want you to know he was also suffering.
Yeah. But then on some of the hills, he'd just fall back, and it's like, okay, yeah, he's hurting too.
Yeah, because we'd be up at the top of the hill, and he'd be like, 200 feet behind us. We're just like, oh, he fell back, and then he'd catch back up in the flat spots.
And then we look forward and look back, and he's right on our wheel again. It's
Yeah.
like, what the hell, man? This guy's an animal.
But it definitely helps talking to each other. Like we're always trying to amp each other up here and there, just like motivate us. Like, dude, like we got this. We've, look at all the other races we've done. If we've done that one, we can do this. Like, I think it definitely helps having like camaraderie between two people. I can't, because when you're doing it solo, you have no one to talk to other than the ghosts and the fucking animals that are
The voice in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah, you start seeing some weird stuff. That's the thing, though. Like, it seems pretty often that when we're going through these ups and downs, like the other one is the opposite.
Yeah.
And everybody I've talked to about doing these longer races, I mean, for obvious reasons, it's significantly better when you got a group of people or more than one person.
Cool. I wanted to. So yeah, we talked about the ups and downs, the mentality. Let's go talk a little bit about nutrition, because that also kind of plays a big part with water. You were talking about how we ran out of water the last 15 miles of this last race.
Yeah.
How do we go about planning for water now?
Well, so like I was saying for that one, so that was a 240-mile gravel race from South Dakota to Wisconsin, where we crossed the state of Minnesota. Mm-hmm. And so there were 3 checkpoints in the middle, one every 60 miles, just to break it up into even chunks. And so we opted to do it unsupported. A lot of people that do this race do it supported, where there's a support crew driving a car that will meet them at each of those 3 checkpoints, and they can have food, water, whatever, but they can only meet the racer at those checkpoints. And so a lot of other people would sit there for 15, 20 minutes, sit down in a chair, take a rest, have their support crew like re-grease their chain and like pump up their tires, whatever they need to do for the bike to tune it up. And we literally pulled in, stopped to get our cue cards for the next 60 miles to the next checkpoint, and some of them would have water. We didn't know if they would have water and stuff for us, but they a lot of times had at least like those igloo coolers. So we'd just stop, fill up our waters quick, and then just be out of there. And everybody else is spending like 15, 20 minutes at least chilling. So we did that, and then, but also, like you were saying, that last 15 miles or whatever, it was like the peak of the afternoon, and it was a really hot, humid day. And we're in the middle of farm fields in southern Minnesota, and there's
no shade anywhere.
no nothing.
How much water did you have on your bike?
So on my bike, I had 5 water bottles, 2 on the fork and 3 in the triangle of the bike frame.
Wow.
We went through all of it.
And a lot of people were looking at us like, "Why do you have so much water?" And like,
You kind of need it.
even
Yeah.
doing it supported, like, I don't know, that was barely enough for me. Maybe I just drink a lot of water, but it was a lot, or it was really tough to get to the next checkpoint once it got really hot out without using all of that water. And so that was a big thing. The last checkpoint, they had these ice cold Coca-Cola
Ice
cans.
cold.
Cold. It was. I'm just thinking about it. My brain's turning to mush. I'm like, that was so good. But that was amazing. And so yeah, filled up all 5 there, and then we had 60 miles to go, and we're like, let's just finish this thing. And yeah, last 50 miles, that was like the hilliest part of the ride too, because
Yeah.
all of the hills are, once you get to the Wisconsin border and you're hitting that river valley, and they're just all these plateaus of farm fields that you're going up and down and up and down. And ran out of water. We're looking at these cue sheets, and you can see the next few turns or whatever, and we're like, okay, so like 10 miles, it's downhill. We hit a downhill down into the city, and then at 5 miles we hit pavement, so it'll be easier to bike. We're not on gravel anymore, so we're trying to break it up. I'm like, it's going to get easier and easier. Like, literally had maybe like 4 to 6 ounces of water in my one water bottle left, and I'm just sipping the smallest sips, trying to make this last and make me feel somewhat hydrated.
But it's so much better at that point. It's like water is just the only thing keeping you going.
And that's like, I know I can get 10 miles without water. Like, I know mentally I can do that, but I had been having headaches, and I felt really fatigued, and like, heat exhaustion was kind of
A real thing.
a thing in the back of my mind. But I'm like, I know I can do 10 miles. Like, that's a ride into work, like from our house in Richfield to where I work. And so that was, this is nothing. It's 10 miles. I can do that. And I just kept getting these headaches and just felt really fatigued. And I was telling Ian at one point, like, if I see a farmer outside, like watering their lawn or something, or like church or school or something with a water spigot out front, like, I am stopping and filling up my water bottle. I was like, I need something to hydrate me. And lo and behold, nobody's outside. We're in the middle of nowhere. There's no buildings.
Yeah, it's got to be tough out in the country there. Like,
Yeah.
What do you see? I mean, people have so much land out there. You probably see
It's just cornfields.
like a
house
a
every couple
house every
miles.
few miles.
Yeah, exactly. And same with cars too. Like, you're just out there.
I wanted to talk about nutrition a little bit for food. I like towards the end of it, because I ran out of water too, and I was getting super hungry. So I was just like, I need to eat something, but I knew if I ate something, I would need to like wash it down with water to like. I was just like, well, I'm just gonna have a very dry mouth because I need food right now. I need some energy. But I really like having kind of a variety of everything, like going from doing the Duluth, or the first attempt on the Duluth ride of just gels. I was like, all right, that doesn't work, but it's nice to have like 1 or 2 Gooch packets of like, the last resort energy if you need it towards the end of the race. And then I also liked having like a couple granola bars or like energy Cliff bars or whatever, because those are really dense, but they also have a lot of nutrition in them. It's not good. I don't really like eating off. That was the guy we were riding with. He solely ate just Cliff bars.
Yeah, I don't know how he managed that.
Yeah.
How much weight do you guys, or like the average rider kind of carry, do you think, on these endurance races?
Well, a lot of them, because they're doing it supported, they just have like 2 water bottles because all
Right.
the food is at their car.
How about like the unsupported ones that you guys do, or some of the other guys that you've seen?
I don't know. My bike is a steel bike, so it already weighs pretty much
Yeah.
quite a bit. And then on top of that, with all the food, my bike probably weighed like 45 pounds, 50 pounds
Okay.
maybe.
And yeah, so sometimes you can plan gas stations and stuff, because you can go in and buy a burger, or like some beef jerky or beef sticks or whatever. So sometimes you can plan that and not have to carry a ton of food with you, but you still want to have
Snacks.
nutrition on your
Yeah.
bike. Yeah. And that's the thing. You can't just go 60 miles, eat a bunch of food, and then go another 60 miles, then eat a bunch more food. You got to be snacking slowly the whole time.
As you go.
Yeah.
Just so your body's constantly being fueled, because
Yep.
you're constantly exerting energy, so you need to be constantly consuming energy. And so some people will do the gas station thing, but I think, going for lightweight snacks or whatever, like I usually do like a salty snack like crackers or trail mix or something. Then I'll have like some granola or something sweet like with chocolate in it, that kind of thing.
Also, this time around with the day across Minnesota, I had gummy worms. Those
Yeah.
that was really awesome. The sugar, like quick energy, and then we also had we did a PB&J's a while back for our Duluth trip, but now one of our coworkers suggested this. This is a genius idea.
Uh-huh.
Have you heard of Uncrustables? Do you remember those?
Yeah, yep.
So we bought those and they're prepackaged. They're ready to go. All you got to do is rip it open and eat them. So we had like 4 or 5 of those stuffed in our jersey pockets and our bikes.
Well, and you don't have like jelly squirting out the sides of the pieces of bread, so like
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
just the best thing to just eat on the go.
It's sealed shut. Like you don't have to think about it. And it's got everything. It's got peanut butter, jelly, and bread for carbs, and
Yep,
it was great.
and
But
it tastes really good.
they're really small though, so I like ate 2 of them at once
But
sometimes.
that's good too because it's
Yeah.
a smaller serving size. So like we were saying, you want to eat small amounts often. You just have one of those and then wait a bit and then like snack on a handful of something else. And
I really love Dot pretzels too. Those were awesome. I had a bag of those and like a little compartment on my frame bag that I could just like put a handful in, grab them in like a Ziploc bag. So that was nice to munch on.
Yeah.
At these gas stations, do you guys find like your average snack or like your sort of things that you go for directly? Like, do you know what you want when you go to a gas station?
Kind of. I just do hot food. So anything, that's like preheated or ready to go, like slices of pizza, warmed up hamburgers or that kind of thing, or those like, taquito rolls or I don't
Yeah.
know what they're called, but
I know what you mean.
so those, and then also I'll buy like a Gatorade or something, and then that's pretty much it. Just stuff
Okay.
my face with hot food and a Gatorade.
right, because that's like the nice amenity you don't get on the bike. You're
Yeah.
sitting and snacking on food that's just dry food,
Yeah.
whatever. So candy, that kind of thing. So having hot food is a nice pick me up.
And you learned on the day across Minnesota that chocolate's not as good of idea in the
No,
summer.
it was great. It was just once we hit that afternoon bit, yeah, I didn't eat it quick enough. That's what I learned. I should have devoured it before it melted.
I was
Yeah.
just gonna say it was just like a melted ball.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. It was delicious though. There's a little peanut butter in there.
But yeah, it's crazy how much we've learned since like that first Duluth trip to now this like most recent ride. We have a setup. We kind of know like this is what we should plan for. And when we did the Duluth ride the second time, and we actually finished it in 22 hours, a single ride there and back. We kept reminding ourselves like, all right, it's been half an hour, 45 minutes. Let's munch on something or like take a drink of water, do something. So that was like really helpful to kind of learn more and like do that a second time around and be more prepared for it.
Yep, just have that schedule, and again, that's something that just breaks up the monotony of the ride. So just like thinking about every hour or every 45 minutes, we got to eat something. It's just one more thing to think about to take your mind off of the just long, straight, boring road ahead.
And then also I want to mention start talking about sleep, because I know sleep is a big question people always ask, like going on these rides that usually start at midnight,
Yeah.
and then you're going like 24 hours, 34 hours without sleeping. For Alex and I, or at least Spiz, the drink we talked about, that honestly has, I don't know if there's any caffeine in it, but
No, I don't think so.
it feels like it because it just
That's the calories, man. Your body's got energy.
yeah. So I like using that. And I also like, I buy a couple 5-hour energies. So those are really, small, compact, and then those are
Loaded with
just
all the stuff you
cocaine,
need.
basically. You
Caffeine
just
and B
fire-
vitamins.
But
But sometimes we do need sleep. Like when we were doing the Alexander race, and our dad was being the support crew for us with the U-Haul. The original plan was to sleep in the trailer, and that way, because there was rain in the forecast, and so the trailer was enclosed, so we could, roll out sleeping bags in there and stay dry. Because we didn't know where it was going to be. It's not like we had a plan to set up a tent at one spot, but the U-Haul is kind of the backup. And we got to the spot where we were thinking of doing the tenting, like ahead of time. We had kind of planned this out, and it's about halfway, and we were right up at the front of the pack with like the 4 or 5 people that were leading the race, and we were feeling pretty good, and like, okay, well, they're still going, let's just keep going.
yeah.
And so we just rode through it. We didn't stop to set up a tent or anything, and we weren't carrying the tent that was in the car that obviously that our dad was driving in. We got to this point after the sun went down, and it had rained, and it was cold.
It was
and-
windy too.
and windy, yeah. And we had started at midnight in the dark, rode through a sunrise, biked all day, rode through a sunset, and then dealt with rain and cold and wind, and got to this spot where 3 of the three of the four people we were with had a hotel reserved, and
Yeah.
we knew this because we were chatting on the ride, and so we're like, okay, well, we know that they're stopping, so if we can just get to that point and at least like make it there, we know that they're not going to keep riding. And so there's a gas station in that little town, and we're stopped there, we're getting food, we're trying to evaluate the situation
And
because
warm up.
it's still raining at this point.
Yeah, dry out our clothes
and that's the other thing. So comfort is huge. We've learned that too. So
Yeah.
like dry socks are really important, like keeping your feet, because your feet hurt. Like it's the contact points on your bike, your hands, your feet, your seat.
yeah, especially on the gravel, your wrists and your hands get so sore from all the
Yeah.
bumps.
Yep. And so that was a big thing, and we were just waiting it out to see what was going to happen. Our dad had met us in that town, so he was there too, and we were kind of evaluating whether we wanted to nap there or not, and just get a few hours of sleep and keep going.
And that's what we were leaning towards.
That's what the plan was. And then this guy Seth Wood that we had kind of been riding with for a while, he was on a single speed bike. He had no gears, and he was doing this insane gravel race with all of these hill climbs, and like some of them that were really gnarly, he'd get off his bike and walk up it, but he was just always moving forward. He just kept going.
Wow.
And so his the tortoise and the hare kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
he was going a little slower, but he
didn't-
just kept going.
Yeah.
Yeah, never give up.
And he's done these. He knows what he's doing. He's got the experience. And so he rolls up to the gas station, goes in, gets like his burger and snacks or whatever and a Gatorade, swaps out the plastic bags that are over his feet to keep his socks dry. And
He was chatting with us for a little bit and like asking if we were going to keep going. And then he was asking about the other couple people, that couple and that other guy we were riding with. We're just like, no, they got hotels. They're sleeping. Like we're still up and in first right now. And he was just like wide eyed, like,
his face lit up. Yeah. He's like, all right, well, I'm going to keep going.
yeah.
Because he was trying to win this thing. That was his objective.
And then that kind of got us motivated. He goes, yeah, you guys could do it. Just go a little further. Just go a little further.
Uh-huh.
So we got a little inspiration. We're just like, okay, I guess we're going to do this.
And we
Yeah.
just wanted to get it over with. Because I think we had, like 120 miles left or something. Like,
Yeah, this was like, that gas station was like mile 240-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And this is at like 12:30, 1 in the morning right now.
Yep.
So we've been up for over 24 hours and we just got refilled. Like we got some coffee, we got some warm food, and then Seth showed up. And
Yeah.
so
So then we threw on rain jackets, geared up our stuff,
Yeah.
greased the chain or whatever, and he had taken off. He was like, 5 minutes ahead of us, and so then we were just taking our time. We're like, whatever, as long as we're moving. Like Seth's gonna take it, and so we were trying to, but we knew he was on a single speed, so we're like, maybe we can catch him on some of the hill climbs if he's walking or whatever. So we take off down Main Street with all our gear and lights going, and you can see his blinking light in the distance just fading away, and I don't know, like 10 miles down the road or something, 5 miles, we ended up catching up to him on one of the uphills.
yeah, out of town.
And he had his headphones in, just jamming to his music, and like we're going up this big giant hill, and then we're coming down this big giant hill, and then we go up another big giant hill and down another one, and then Ian and I both kind of look over at each other, and he's like, yeah, were you kind of like nodding off on that hill? And I was just like, yeah, dude, I felt like I was about to fall asleep. Like you're blinking and then you kind of open your eyes and like, I don't know how long I had my eyes closed,
Yeah.
like that kind of thing. And these are hills, gravel roads in the dark at night.
Bit dangerous.
Yeah.
You're going 35, 40 miles an hour down some of these.
That fast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're just kind of like, for safety reasons, we should not be riding our bikes anymore right now. Like my body is telling me that I need sleep, and we've ridden 240 miles over the course of 24 hours. Like, yeah, that's a valid thing that your body's trying to tell you. And we're first time doing it. We're not like Seth, where he's just an animal, and he claims it's because he's a dad and he has kids. He's like, I've got superpowers. I just don't need sleep. But we're not there yet. So, so at that point, our dad had left that gas station when we took off, and so he was waiting at that next place 60 miles 50 miles down the road or whatever, and we had only gotten like 15-20 miles from the gas station and barely have cell service. We're in the middle of nowhere. We're at the top of a hill. It's windy and it's like drizzling
Yeah.
and cold, and we have no layers. All of our clothes and stuff are in the car. We have nothing on
Oh,
us.
no.
We don't
other
have a
than-
sleeping bag. We don't have anything.
Yep, and you're up by these farm fields. There's no shelter anywhere to get out of this stuff, and so I like finally find some service to call my dad, and I'm just like, we need sleep. Like we need to at least get a couple hours. Can you meet us at this intersection of this and this? And it was like one of them was a paved road, I think, and then it turned into gravel on the T. That's where we were turning.
Yeah.
And So it was like somewhat of a highway. It's not like we were super out in the middle of nowhere, but we were, half an hour at least from where he was. And so we're sitting there waiting, and I'm just like, I don't want to stand. I'm just gonna lay down here in this grass and like the ditch. And I had my not my sleeping bag, my rain jacket zipped all the way up with the hood up, so it's like totally around me like a little shell. And I was just sitting there with my arms crossed, my legs crossed, trying to keep all the body heat in. And I was just laying there, and then all of a sudden, the kind of like same thing where you like blink and you're like, how long are my eyes closed? And like I'm like, when did I call my dad? What time was that? And I look at my phone for outgoing calls, and it was an hour ago.
Oh.
And I'm just like, okay, so we were asleep for like, 45 minutes or so, and where the hell is dad? Like,
We're just in the ditch. Like,
you're in a car, we're cold, we have no shelter, like, this is real. Like, what are we doing?
yeah, that was kind of the oh shit moment.
Uh-huh. And I'm trying to call him, no answer. Try calling him again, no answer. And we're like, he hasn't slept at all either this whole time. So he's sleep deprived and driving around with towing a U-Haul. And we're just like, did something happen with the car? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, we're freaking out a little bit.
Does he not have service? Did his phone die? Like, and finally get a hold of him on the phone. He's like, yeah, I'm like, 10 minutes away. I'll be there in 10 minutes, whatever. And so, because we had propped our bikes up on the sign right at the corner there with the lights blinking.
So you could see him.
Yeah.
So that way, like, if we're sleeping in the ditch, we're just
They
like,
probably couldn't see two dudes just curled up in
Yeah.
a ditch.
yeah. So we had the headlights just on, like, flashing strobe right there, so that way he'd see where our bikes were and where we were. But yeah, that was kind of a scary moment.
Yeah.
Being out there without any amenities, without any of the gear, and being novice endurance riders and not knowing how to react in those situations. That was a very real fear.
Thankfully, our dad showed up like, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 minutes after that. And then we got some sleep in the car, probably like, I don't know, 2.5 hours
Yep.
of sleep.
So we didn't even set up the sleeping bags in the U-Haul. We just slept in the car with the car running.
Yeah, and the heat was on blast.
Because we were like, we don't want to waste the time getting stuff set up. We just want to get like an hour or two of sleep and get back on the bikes.
Yeah.
The hardest part, though, was getting up out of that car because
I imagine.
you slept for a couple hours, so your body just wants to keep sleeping.
Yeah, just, hey guys, just 100 more miles to go.
And you're in wet, sweaty clothes.
Yeah, as soon as you stand outside, it's cold and windy again, and you're just like, oh my god.
And everything's stiff because we were just sleeping in chairs.
Yeah. We're literally shivering. And
I mentally, I was at the point where I'm like, dude, do we call it? Like, we could just get a ride home right here and just continue sitting in this car. And Ian was like, no, we got to do it. And like, my dad's telling me to get going. I was like, I don't have the gear for this. I don't have a hat. I don't have like long
you were
sleeves.
freaking out.
I was like, this is cold and wet and I don't have the right clothes for this. And my dad had a hat that he just keeps in the car for like emergencies in the winter or whatever. He's like, here, wear this. And I'm like, all right.
And that was enough.
And it was dark out at that point too. I was like, let's sleep for another hour till the sun starts coming up. Once the sun's coming up, it'll be like a little more motivator. I think we ended up total with like 2 or 3 hours of sleep. Because
I think it was like 3.
it was like 2:30 or 3 in the morning when he got there.
Yeah.
Or when we stopped or whatever it was. And
But we finally got out of the car. It was maybe like 4:30 when we started biking again.
Yep.
And then the sun started creeping up at like 5:15, 5:30. But yeah,
and we didn't know how long those people at that town with the hotel were going to sleep. We
Yeah.
didn't know if they were spending the whole night there or if they were going to do half a night and keep biking. So we're kind of in this unknown where we don't know if they've passed us. We don't
Right.
know if they're still behind us. But in the gravel, you could see how many bike trails have gone by
Oh.
because nobody's on these roads. And so we're like, oh, it's just Seth ahead of us still.
yeah, we just saw the one tire tracks. Yeah, that was an experience trying to figure out sleep. So like that was the first kind of experience with it. And then when we tried Duluth the second time, we were just like, well, we did, we went 240 miles without sleeping. Like we could do the full trip was I think like 300 and
3:30ish.
yeah. We were just like we could do that because if we do it in under 24 hours, that's not that bad. We only have to hold a pace of like 15, 16 miles an hour.
Right.
And so, and the other part of it too, we were doing, if we finished during the day or at like before 24 hours, we didn't have to go through another cycle of night, which is also, I think, what messed us up, going
Yep.
through night a second time.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah, that was honestly my favorite thing about doing the Alexander race was we started at midnight, right? And then so we biked through a sunrise. And then like the second night we had slept for a few hours in the car. And then we got to bike through a second sunrise. So like you just experiencing that on a bike when you're in the middle of nowhere, like getting there entirely on your own power is just this really surreal feeling.
Yeah.
But that's like those little rewards where you don't really appreciate it in the moment just because everything hurts. But then afterwards, it's like, that was really cool.
Yeah.
I could imagine on a bike, you guys see a lot of stuff along the way. You see any interesting things or cool sights?
The cat.
Yeah. Tell them about the cat story.
Oh, man. So this was that same Alexander race we were doing. It was like just after this really gnarly downhill. I actually lost one of the water bottles that was on like this seat mounted thing I had. We go by another thing we see a lot too, going by all these farmhouses, is farm dogs.
Yeah.
And
they're vicious.
They're just outside. They're not on a leash. They're not whatever. They're just like free range dogs on the farm, and they hate it when strangers come up. And so we're biking by it like 15, 20 miles an hour depending on the hill or whatever, and they come out chasing you, just barking and snarling at you. And so we came down this really big hill and kind of pushed away from the people that were right behind us. And we're like, well, that dog's out in the street now, so it's like ready for whoever's coming next. Good luck, guys.
Yeah, we felt a little bit bad, but
yeah, little diversion. But then, so just after that, we're going down this same road, and we come up to another house, and there's no dogs or anything, but there's this cat like in the middle of the road, and then it just starts running because we're flying. We just came down this big hill, and we're going at like 20 miles an hour at least, and the cat's just sprinting straight forward at 20 miles an hour,
following us on the side of the road.
It was like 100 feet. I'm like, dude, like turn, go somewhere else. But directly to the left side, because it was on the left side of the road running next to us, is like a 30-foot drop straight down to like trees, and then like the farm field that's 30 feet below with all this like rocky, bouldery, hard dirt. And so this cat's just sprinting, and then all of a sudden just leaps to the left off of this cliff. And then we're like, what the hell just happened? And it just like bounces off the ground and then keeps sprinting. And we're like, how is it alive? Like, that was insane. God. But we definitely scared the shit out of that cat.
Yeah.
Because it was like 6 or 7 in the morning. Like, it's not thinking anybody's going to be outside.
Yeah, I was thinking, is it like dark out or is it the middle
of
the day?
No, the sun was kind of coming up.
This was like the first morning after that was a crazy experience.
That was really cool. And then, other wildlife sometimes you just hear like very large like rustling in the trees, and you don't know what's over there, and it's kind of just like, I'm just gonna keep biking.
The mountain bike race we did, the Wausau 24, that was when I experienced the kind of like, you're on a single track like 13-mile loop, and you have 24 hours and however many loops you can do in 24
so what is single
hours.
Track?
It's a mountain bike trail, so basically just like a dirt trail with trees and brush all around you, filled with like rocks and roots everywhere. It's a single track is just basically like just wider than the width of your tire. It's probably
like what you'd picture a hiking trail or something, maybe.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Like down by the river bottoms, those kind of trails. That's single track. But so in the middle of the night, where it's like 2 a.m. and you just hear you can hear owls and other like random animals making noises, and there's mice running across the trail, and it's just the scariest
lots
shit.
of bats.
Yeah,
but it's cool. It's
how easy is it to see in the dark on those, like especially on the mountain bike trails and stuff? It's a little bit different than an open gravel road. And
with those we had to use these really high powered lights that have like these giant battery packs, and they're like 1,000 lumens, so they're just insanely bright, which is super helpful because then you can actually see. But then it's also a little bit creepy because you can see like another headlight of another biker, like 6 miles up somewhere.
Well, and to that same point of hearing stuff in the trees, like you're kind of zigzagging through the woods, so like there could be other bikers 10 feet to your left, but you don't know where the trails kind of come close to each other. But then you hear these really loud noises, and there's no headlights over there, so it's not a biker. Those ones get kind of interesting too at night. Like, I love night riding. It's a different environment. It's cool, and you get to see some cool wildlife, and it's not something you get every day. But you're just looking down this trail with like this perfect circle of what you see in front of you, and there's like a little bit of trees on the left, a little bit of trees on the right, and then the path going straight down the middle. Then even as you're moving, there might be like some rocks or whatever, but this scene is exactly the same. So it's really easy to just kind of get lost in this daze of like, I'm not moving, this is just the same thing, and your brain kind of just decides to not work anymore because it's like, oh, whatever, it's just the same thing over and over. But it's not. The terrain is constantly changing.
And then that's also when you start picking like the really bad lines. So that's like when you're going through a really rocky section or like big boulders and stuff, your brain doesn't pick an easy line, so picking the best route
Right,
to
you
go
get
through.
sloppy.
Yeah, so you're gonna hit a bunch of really big boulders that you could have easily avoided, but your brain just doesn't work.
You get hypnotized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like the perfect way to describe it.
But that was a interesting race. And then in the morning, after we had rode all through the night and the day, I was waiting at the transition area where you have to tap out to like transition the riders, and I was falling asleep just on the side of the hill waiting for you to come through, just because I was so tired, because I don't know, riding.
Yeah. So one thing I've gotten asked a lot too about these, like I know the Wausau 24-hour race, like I experienced this a lot just because it was so rocky and like mountain bike trail really bumpy. But people always ask, like, doesn't your ass get sore?
Oh,
like, how
yeah.
do you sit on a bike seat for that long? And it does get sore. It hurts. And like we've got the bike chamois, which have a pad in them, and there's chamois cream, which is like, I don't know, like a lotion or like, whatever.
For your ass, basically.
Yeah.
Ass lotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's such a savior. It works really well.
It's some good ass lotion. But yeah, and that's the thing too. It's just like putting the miles in. Like the more you ride, the more your body's going to be used to it and comfortable. And having the right seat is a big thing too.
Yeah,
No.
I always try and ride with a leather seat. It's called the Brooks like B17 standard saddle. It's a very well known for the leather kind of forming to your ass. So it's just the most comfy seat you can ever have,
Yeah,
essentially.
literally customized to the shape of your
Cheeks.
butt.
Your cheeks.
But yeah, that's a real thing. But like I said, the more you do it, the more your body just gets used to it, and like you get calluses or just familiarity with it.
Well, it sucks though if you have your wet, sweaty
Yeah.
clothes, and then you start chafing. So it is nice too if you can have a dry set of like clothes you can change into. So then it's like fresh and it's not wet and gross, and
100%.
that's kind of helps. Yeah, we've been talking for a long time.
Yeah. I wanted to ask also, like, mechanically, what do you have to do for your bike? Do you have to, I mean, you talk about greasing your chain a lot.
Yeah, so that was something that never dawned on us till we did this day across Minnesota gravel race, because it was hot and dry. When we did the Alexander on gravel, it was rainy and wet.
Yeah.
So this one, it was super, super dusty, and dust and like mechanical chains don't really
Yeah,
get along.
no.
And so after we hit the halfway point, my bike was just making these terrible creaking, grinding
Yeah.
noises. And I thought it was going to just like snap in half or break apart and like I'd be done. But all these other people I learned have, their support crews just re-greasing their chain and stuff. I'm like, I didn't even think to bring chain lube with me
Yeah.
on this kind of a ride. And that's when you need it the most, because like you can feel the resistance as you're pedaling,
Yep.
trying to fight against all this dirt in your chain that's just, sucking all of the lubrication off of there.
But we've been actually pretty fortunate not having any mechanical issues, and knock on wood. But we always keep like out of the essentials, I think keeping like a hand pump is a lot better than like a CO2 cartridge, because those you can only use once.
Yep.
Like a hand pump you can use is infinite.
Yeah.
And then also a multi-tool, so you got like little Allen wrenches and screwdrivers and stuff, so you can change stuff out. And then it's one thing that's kind of a I don't know, derailleur hangers. You keep one of those, and that basically attaches on to the rear derailleur, which is kind of like the shifting mechanism for your gears. Sometimes those bend if you fall. If you fall on the one side, it could bend the derailleur hanger. So those are nice to have, but that's kind of a one-off scenario.
And that's more mountain biking, because like your steel frame bike is
Yeah, the derailleur is part
integrated.
into the frame.
Yeah, I always have a spare tube, obviously, and that kind of thing. But it's those little things you pick up, like chain lube. Like as you're doing several hundred miles, you're gonna need to take care of some of those things, which you don't think about on a daily bike ride.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't
It's
know.
a lot of stuff you got to take into account.
Yeah, that was,
The whole learning curve of
and we're still learning.
endurance
Like,
biking.
every
bike
time
racing.
we do a new race, we're learning something new every time, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're just learning little things here and there, like, oh, I never thought about that. Like Uncrustables, that's genius. You're like,
Uncrustables.
Well, and so the next kind of endeavor that we have is a couple of these endurance races that are in the winter.
Yeah.
There's one in that was our whole reason for doing the Alexander race, was to kind of build up that racer resume for the Arrowhead, which is in January. Starts at the Canadian border in Minnesota, and it's on snowmobile trail the whole way. But we're familiar with all these races in this long distance, but kind of getting into that in the winter when it's like sub-0 degrees out. That's a whole other can of worms. Like we got to figure out so many more things, and we haven't had a ton of experience with that yet. So that's going to be something new and something
Which would be fun.
challenging,
It's exciting.
but also like the danger aspect of it, because
It's very real.
Going out for these rides in the summer, you just got to make sure you got food and water. That's the big thing. Stay hydrated. But if you're outside in the cold and you don't have the right gear, like
You could frostbite.
freeze,
Yeah.
So that'll be the next thing.
Do you guys talk to anyone about kind of like things you'll need?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We've talked to a bunch of people at work that have been into it and kind of gotten familiar with it. But it's either way, until you experience it, I mean, you don't really know.
Yeah, the most important thing I think with the winter stuff is that you got to have like obviously all the right gear, and with we have to have like special rated sleeping bags that are rated to like -40 degrees, and that's a big sleeping bag. So you have to figure out where to put all this stuff on your bike, because you need to have way more food with you. You also need to have food that doesn't freeze. You know, you don't want to eat something that's like rock hard.
Yeah.
So that's also something
Can't
that
really
we got to
bring the
figure
chocolate
out
anymore.
Exactly. And your water.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just have a water bottle on your frame because it's going to turn into an ice cube. So how do you carry water and be able to drink it? And then it's going to be in some kind of zipper insulated thing. How do you open these zippers with gloves on? How do you do all this without, exposing your skin? So that's going to be the next thing.
Yeah. It's what are you gonna say?
I was just, there you go.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been a really fun in Denver though, and it's super exciting to just kind of push the boundary of like how far can you pedal on a bike in one ride. We did this, like what's next? We biked across Minnesota, like we've done that before. We biked to Duluth and back in one ride. Like it's pretty cool just to see what's possible.
Yep. Got to push the limits.
So we're going to be wrapping up pretty soon, but I wanted to quickly talk about kind of the takeaways and like things that we've learned over these past 3 races we've done. What do you think's the most kind of valuable stuff that you've learned?
Well, kind of like Eli had pointed out, the ups and downs just kind of relate to life, and that's what it is. But it's like riding a bicycle. You gotta just keep moving forward.
Yeah, it's the simplest thing, and like all you gotta do is pedal. But when you gotta pedal for 40 hours,
just keep pedaling. That's all it is. Pedal, eat food, drink water.
Never has Finding Nemo made so much sense.
Right.
Just keep swimming.
Yeah, man. Just keep riding the wave. The probably one of the biggest ones I've taken away is how much more I can appreciate like when you're out riding a bike for so long. It's like there's nothing else that matters. You're just sitting here pedaling a bike. You are in the present, and that's really cool. You're not thinking about anything else in the world except for pedaling and like looking around. You notice so much more. You're not thinking about work. You're not thinking about school. You're not thinking about any other obligations you have. Mm-hmm. You're just solely focused on what's around you, which is really awesome. Because I think
freeing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep, 100%. I just love that feeling of being out in the middle of absolutely nowhere, getting there entirely on your own power. Because like you see some awesome sights, like we were saying, you bike through some really cool sunrises. You get to see just really awesome scenery that sure you could go drive there, but you're not going to appreciate it the same way.
And then when you get to that finish, you have such a feeling of accomplishment. You're just like, wow, like I did that.
I can't imagine even biking like 380 miles. That's insane.
Well,
like,
the thing everybody always says, like, I don't even want to drive that far.
Yeah.
Like, so don't ride it.
So what would that take to drive 380 miles just on like a highway at like 60, 65 miles an hour? Like what's that?
Probably 4 hours.
Yeah.
4.5 hours.
That's crazy.
Yeah, some people don't like driving. You guys bike it.
Yeah. Next race we got coming up, the next big one is called the Tuscobia. It's a 160-mile fat bike winter race. It's over in Wisconsin. I forget what city.
I'm not sure. It's like north central Wisconsin.
But it's a all ski or snowmobile trail, and it's basically like out and back. So you're on this snowmobile trail for like 80 miles, and then you get to this town, and then you turn around, and then you ride the same trail back 80 miles.
Okay.
So it's pretty, I guess, boring scenery, which is going to be the hardest challenge, I think, because we're going to be looking at the same stuff.
Well, and I think the biggest challenge, too, with winter racing is it's winter, so the sun goes down earlier. So
Yeah.
it's cold because it's winter, but then it gets colder because the sun goes down for such a long time.
You guys ever have those hand warmers?
Yep.
Little hand warmer packet things
Yeah,
that you
we'll
like
use
squeeze.
those. I got pretty bad frostbite like 7 or 8 years ago, so my toes are prone to getting cold quicker.
Okay.
So that's like a different thing I have to deal with, and I've been experimenting with different stuff like aluminum foil or like bags around your feet, and I use toe warmers constantly, but those don't seem to last for more than like 45 minutes or an
Right.
hour for me. So just figuring out the right footwear.
Yeah, and then also figuring out lights and stuff because all of our batteries die quicker
Yep.
because it's colder.
And so a lot of people will keep their external battery packs and lights and stuff in a like a bag or frame bag or whatever on their bike, and they actually keep hand warmers in there with the batteries, so the batteries don't freeze, to keep them warm so they last longer.
That's something I don't know if I would think about.
And I know
Yeah.
I wouldn't have either until I start talking to people and figure out these little tricks. But yeah, it's a whole new realm.
Yeah, so we have yet to explore of what how to deal with these scenarios. So that's going to be new for this year. But then it's also fun because we've done these summer ultra races, and now it's kind of cool to try something different. It's like, all right, well, we've done all this in the summer. What can we use that we've learned in the summer that might work in the winter?
That applies to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing too, you could say, Tuscobie is 160 miles and we've done this 400 miles, so it's like, oh, it's a piece of cake. But you're on a fat bike with 4 or 5 inch wide
Whole
tires.
different realm.
Yeah.
And in snow, so you're moving at maybe 6 miles an hour.
At most.
So your scenery passes by real slow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a lot longer too because you're going 6 miles an hour. So you're going to be out that much longer. You're going to be
Yeah.
on the bike for that much longer.
Right.
But this race is also a prerequisite, same with the Arrowhead, to the Iditabike, which is a very big.
Yeah, if you know, like the Iditarod sled dog race across Alaska, it's basically that on bikes. So what is it? There's like is it a 300 mile?
Yeah, 300, 500, and then
1,000.
Yeah.
Where you
Wow.
cross the state of, pretty much, I mean, it's a large portion of the state of Alaska, and you just have to get from point A to B. There's no map.
And it's up in
there's,
Alaska?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
There's no route. You can go however you like. You just have to get from A to B, and you're crossing several mountain passes and all this stuff. So
That's crazy.
it's nuts.
Yeah, that's on the.
Watch out for grizzly bears.
Yeah, that one's a serious survival race.
Yeah, I don't know if we're ready for that, but.
Yeah, it's on the bucket list. A couple years down the road or something.
Did you have any last questions or thoughts you want to say to the people or ask us?
I don't think so. Covered a lot.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Do you have any last words?
Ride your bike. That's all I got.
Oh, that reminds me actually. So people ask about training. Just bike to work. Like that's what we do, honestly, to train for these long rides. If you bike to work every day, it's like your body's just going to get in that, motion of constantly pedaling, which is it's a super easy way to train because you don't have to go out of your way to go for a long ride on the weekend or whatever. Just bike to work.
Or drive, if you live, 40 miles away from your work, you could drive part way and then bike from where you parked.
Right. That's a one thing that we've been doing quite a bit is just biking to work every day, which I think helps long term because then, we're used to just sitting on the bike constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And then whenever I get in the car to go get groceries or run errands, the gas tank's always full. It's a win-win.
Cool. This wraps up another podcast. Thank you everyone for listening. I really appreciate you sincerely. If you want to check out my website, it's themakehappiness.com. There'll be a link in the description. So there's clothes you can buy. There's a blog. You can read up about some other ultra races that we've done. Alex actually has a blog that he wrote about his first 100 miles that he biked alone, which is kind of interesting. So that was cool.
Yep. Guest blog.
But yeah, take care and always remember, make some happiness.